Hello everybody, 8th from the future here. You'll notice that we now have intro and outro music. Thank you to Isaak Wolf, who is an indie music producer I follow because I'm an Arknight simp and he's part of that community. And we're trying to work on our production for the podcast and get better at it. We've been tuning our mics and stuff like that, so you'll see starting with next week's episode that stuff starts to sound better. So thank you for listening to our episodes thus far, and we'll keep getting better at it. Welcome back to Unhinged and Unranked. I can occasionally spell Massachusetts right on the first time, but not most of the time. We've decided, after listening to Slash's recordings of the first intro multiple times, we took a unanimous vote that only I'm qualified enough to be cringe, so I'm doing the intros now.
Thank fucking God, I'm never doing one of those goddamn cringy ass introductions again.
I was born in the cringe. Alright, we're talking about long dead game mechanics today. So game mechanics that are no longer really prevalent. It doesn't mean they don't appear anywhere, but they're not really a popular thing anymore, or they're things that are relegated to certain types of games now. So the first one we have is save mechanics. How have save mechanics changed over time?
When I first started gaming, the games didn't save. I used to have a game genie that would let me skip to the level that I was at when I stopped playing and then continue going because I couldn't beat Sonic the Hedgehog in one go. What was the other one called? The Game Genie was for Sega Genesis, and there was one that was for Nintendo, but I never had a Nintendo when I was a kid, so I don't remember what it was called. It's on the tip of my... Game Shark.
Yeah, it was for earlier Nintendo and a lot of their handhelds.
Oh yeah. It was on the Game Boy. I think I had one for my Game Boy Color.
When saving the game was not an included feature, PlayStation days, you had to get a memory card, or if you didn't have a memory card, you just couldn't save.
Oh yeah, you're right. And they used to insert.
Covered two eras already.
Yeah, I remember I played a lot of PS2 and my memory card broke one day and I just kept playing the game, and every time I turned it on, I just right back from the beginning.
That sounds painful. Jeez.
I had written down some research on that, and that's basically two of the eras right there. You had once games finally had at all memory to use, you could have very simple save systems, you had the codes and passwords for saving stuff, and then you had the memory cards, which we've kind of moved back away from. The last time I can use adding memory to something was my PlayStation Vita, which isn't quite the same thing, but you pretty much needed an SD card to store very much on those things. I think I remember them doing some kind of proprietary thing, as Sony likes to do, where you had to buy a specific memory card that was really expensive. It couldn't just be an SD card. It had to be DLC card. Yeah. Yep, that was Sony at the time. PlayStation 3 was we came up with quantum level bullshit that doesn't work with everything
Sony.
else.
It's still them. They do that shit now.
They're still fighting.
Not like that's changed at all.
Yeah, they're still doing dumb shit.
Even before the era before that was arcade games, which had no saving. It was just high scores. Games were designed around one session.
Yeah.
And then once you had actual
save, insert more quarters.
Exactly.
Feed the machine.
Saves more like eat into your savings, Lamau.
One thing that I didn't know about the Game Boy Color games, I didn't have a regular Game Boy. I don't know if those games saved, but I was digging through my old shit and I found this little satchel that I had my old Game Boy Color in, and I tried to pop in the yellow Pokemon game, and it wouldn't turn on to the game that I had saved on there. And I found out that inside those cartridges, there's a round battery, those watch batteries. And because that battery had was like what 25, like actually almost like 30 years old now, I guess. That game when it came out, I think it was like 95, 96. That watch battery, if it goes out, there goes all your saves. So you have to open it up, like pry it open and replace that battery to get it going again. And there used to be a place, I think it was called Play and Trade or something. It was like kind of like a GameStop, but you could take your games there, and then they had like a little machine that would open it up, and then you could put a battery in and replace the old one, and it would get your game working again without you having to buy a new one. But I thought that was kind of interesting about the saves on the Game Boy. Each thing had its own like little tiny flash drive worth of memory in the inside that worked off of that battery.
I feel like the old consoles and early gaming stuff had a lot of mechanical ingenuity to them. Like now they pretty much saturated it down to, you know, the same kind of hierarchies they use for everything. But in early days, like arcade games and consoles, it was like pushing the cutting edge. They were like really rednecking how that stuff worked just to get it to work at all. Like they were really being clever to advance the technology on that stuff.
That definitely led to a lot of creativity, but there were a lot of horribly made games as well. They were aware of the mechanics, but they just didn't know how to implement it. So I'd argue that though some things are more standard, I'd say things overall tend to be more polished as well.
That's true. But there was charm to those shitty little games too. Like even if they weren't that great. At least
Absolutely, it spurred innovation.
Trying stuff.
Try something new.
Now it feels like everyone's copying everyone. Like take all those battle royale games. They're pretty much the same game, but reskinned with different guns, maybe like one or two different mechanics, like all the sliding and the fast pacedness of Apex versus like the slower, more methodical PUBG, and then the Call of Duty is just Call of Duty gameplay in a battle royale game. Same guns. Like nowadays it feels like every genre is saturated with the same types of games. Like look at what Marvel Rivals just came out. It's the same fucking game as what's it? Wow.
Overwatch.
It's on the tip of my tongue. Overwatch.
Paladins.
Yeah, it's the same fucking game except it's Marvel.
Paladins.
It's the first literal hero shooter.
Yeah, some early RPGs varied pretty widely as well. Some early 90s RPGs, there was a God mode popularity for a while where the game wasn't exactly challenging, but you as the player character were a God-powered level character, and you were just kind of tearing through hordes of enemies. That was more in early recreational gaming. Now there's a lot more competition in the competitive area, not just slash all the things. Though there are some good hack and slashes out.
No, ARPGs.
I think that's probably what that led to is RPGs for sure. The old Might and Magic, non-linear progression, a good old like level 2 walking into the level 30 area, just getting one shot. Instead of hand holding you through the tutorial, no guardrails.
Yep.
When every game was Elden Ring, like the good old Baldur's Gates and Icewind Dales and stuff, like those games were hard out of the gate. It made you like those old classic RPGs made you feel like you had to use everything at your disposal, like geometry, every consumable you had, every skill. You had to do like everything just to win every little encounter. Barely.
A lot of games didn't have difficulty levels.
Yeah.
There was no
difficulty levels get good.
Fairy godmother mode where you could go in and everything is super easy and gets knocked over when you blow on it.
Back to arcade games, like they made money mostly off of you losing and pay to winning to progress further. Which brings us right into live and continue systems. Like that's something else that I don't see that much. You'd see it in some like maybe indie side-scrolling platformers, but like you don't really have live systems anymore.
Oh, you mean like in like Mario where you could restart the level?
Yeah,
because you had
like where you had limited lives.
The one up.
Yeah, there's some, but it's definitely less common now. I think more have adopted the like Zelda kind of heart system.
Right.
The more of you have varying health bars, though not all took it the same way as Zelda, because you could collect more hearts and expand your health bar, not just through gear, but through permanently unlocking in addition to your health. That's really uncommon, I would say. Is it tends to be more gear focused from what I've seen. You equip this thing and that makes you better, versus you go and find and solve these puzzles, get this collection, and then you get a permanent power up kind of thing.
Were those side quests what you're talking about, like the permanent hearts? I don't remember playing Zelda. I played
They were
one
absolutely
or two.
side quests. They were not required for progression whatsoever.
Okay, so
But the more
optional
hearts made it
content.
easier.
Yeah, and then probably secrets because Zelda had secrets in it, right? That's kind
Yeah, a
of
lot.
something else that we were talking about earlier. That
Zelda had a lot of secrets in it.
yeah, and now
It
games have gotten
really
away from it.
it led to the exploration. You're in this world, go explore it.
It brings me back to good old Game Boy days, like Link's Awakening. Some of the puzzles in that game were like so difficult at the time to me as like a kid. It's like I remember one where a room was you had to kill the different enemies in like a certain order to progress in the dungeon, but the only thing you had to go on was a poem. It's like, how does this connect to that? It's like, you couldn't do that in modern era. We're too dumb for that now. If quest marker ain't there, we're not gonna figure it out. We're going to the wiki.
Yeah, or yeah, exactly. We're gonna go
Man.
straight to Google, Google it, find it on Reddit, find the answer, not even try to think about how to figure it out or solve it ourselves. I'm
That's
guilty of it.
interesting that you mentioned that. Yeah, because now I'm thinking back to earlier RPGs are primarily, but some single players as well. Like, to know what was going on, like, you had to read that text. You had to listen to that NPC.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there wasn't a magic arrow pointing you in the right way.
I'm putting thinking as a long dead game mechanic now.
It honestly is. I mean, it is. I mean, back in the 90s, you gotta think about, there was dial-up, yeah, but and everyone probably had like their little fucking trial of Net Zero or AOL or whatever the fuck for like 90 days, and that's how they got their dial-up. But the phone was taken up when you had the dial-up internet on, so one computer could be on the internet. It was slow as shit, and no one could be on the phone, so you couldn't be on the internet for that long. So looking up stuff, one, there was no Google either, so there was no good search engine. There was like MSN and AOL and Yahoo. Yahoo was the best search engine, I think, back in the 90s. And there weren't a lot of forums for like video games because games were like a kid thing. Not a lot of adults did blogging about video games, and let alone the secrets and the puzzle answers. You had to go to either Best Buy or Circuit City because it was still around in the 90s and go buy those freaking Prima guides because that was the only way that you were going to solve the game if you weren't smart enough to do it yourself.
Absolutely. Then that led a little bit into when the early internet started. GameFAQs, that's just a site I know I used a lot for Game Boy games because not always able to go and afford that fancy color guide hand pamphlet, but can go read some blocks of text on a website, which more or less has the same, just not as visually interesting. But that didn't really come around and start getting useful till like early thousands, late 90s.
Yeah, when there was like more population going on there. I used to go into the aisle where all those guides were, and I would just start flipping through them. If they were like, if you could grab them off the shelf, and I knew exactly where I was in the game, I would just go. I'd be like, I gotta go to the store, Dad. Let's go. And he'd fuck off and go look at whatever the hell he liked to look at in the Best Buy, which was I think like car stereos and bullshit. And I'd be in the middle where all the games were. And back then, Best Buy had those big ass TVs in the middle. They had the console on them, and then you'd be playing like looking up into the ceiling, and everyone in the store could see you playing. I don't know if you guys remember that. I used to love doing that shit.
I remember seeing a lot of those in malls.
Oh yeah, they had them in malls. They had them in Walmarts too, like in the video game aisle, but it wasn't like a big screen. It was like a little screen where you could like try out the new game that had come out that week. Like usually it was like Madden or
more
some
demo.
other bullshit. Yeah, like a little demo and there was always kids playing them. Like, and if your parents were shopping and they were cool, they would just let you go there and you could go play for like 30 minutes, and then they'd come back and get you when they were done shopping, and you didn't have to like follow them around.
Man, my parents were cheap on that. I never got a single guide sans one time. I had saved up all my allowance. I had done all these extra chores, got all my quarters together. I'm like, all right, I got $15. I'm gonna go get a game guide. And I went to the store. I was all excited, and they had a pricing error. Like, that was the luckiest day of my childhood. They were supposed to have taken the game guides I got off the shelf, so they all had pricing errors and rang up for a penny. So I went right back to that shelf and got like 10 more.
Oh my gosh.
Love
Flip them on the market. Save them as collectibles and sell them for $300 years later or something.
What game was it?
There you
Do
go.
you remember?
Final Fantasy and 7, I think, and Advanced Wars 2.
Oh man,
So,
yeah.
I haven't thought about
And
Advanced
those are
Wars in
fat
a long
guides
time.
too, because I had the 8, and the 8 is like a thick boy.
Oh yeah, they're light novels for sure.
That light novels.
Yeah, I actually found
That's,
that. I found that guide the other day.
I remember the good old like Prima guides. Like, I think of like Christmas 2006 is the zenith of my life. Getting like my parents got me the like gilded page Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess Prima guide like a few days before Christmas, and that was the hint. And then I got a Wii. I was up at like 3 a.m. playing Wii tennis and Call of Duty 3 and Twilight Princess. It's been all downhill from there. Life has never recovered to that level of having the gilded Twilight Princess pages.
Let me look up. I don't even know what you're talking about.
It was the Twilight Princess was the Zelda game for the Wii. Like not the Wii U. That was, what was that, Skyward Sword, but Twilight Princess was the one that was like,
I think they also had
it
it
was
for GameCube.
It was more Ocarina of Time-esque, wasn't it? I thought.
I think that's
Yeah, it was
the
pretty
one
close
and
to Ocarina.
only that I played of Zelda on the Game Boy.
And it had the fishing, like you're fishing with the Wii remote, which was like the absolute hypest thing at the time. And doing the sword attacks and stuff.
Zelda for me was N64 at Oracle of Time and Majora's Mask.
Oh, I remember
I think there were two.
Majora's Mask when it came out. My friend had it. I never had a N64. I had a Sega, and then I had a PlayStation, a PS2, and an Xbox.
Never had an N64 when I was little. That was in college for me.
And I had
Yeah.
a 64 and a
Skipped it up.
GameCube.
I feel like I started on Sega, and then I felt loyalty, like brand loyalty to them, even though they
Yeah.
they lost the console war, like for sure, against Nintendo.
They closed their big, or are closing the big Sega arcade in Japan too, which like feels sad. It was like such a huge
what?
arcade. Yeah.
That sucks.
That was not recent. They closed it in September 2022.
No, it's pretty expensive to maintain. Just from like, I mean, there's kind of a lot of diseases, people getting sick, a certain amount of liability from hosting it, just keeping everything clean, maintaining working machines. Like people,
Okay.
gamers like to rage. Sometimes they break things. Run an arcade, you get a lot of broken.
Yeah. That's me. That's me breaking the
Yeah,
shit. man.
slash getting
Just doing
salted
those
at
combos,
joust.
and you just like fucking right on top
Smacking
of
that
the buttons.
joystick
like,
too
fuck
hard.
these buttons.
I could see Joust being a game that Slash would especially get raged at because of the like momentum mechanics and stuff. Did you play Joust, Slash? Did you play a lot of old arcade games?
I've played. I don't know that I would say that I played a lot of them.
Defender.
But I've played my fair share, but the one that used to make me rage was Marvel vs. Capcom because I liked that one and I played it a lot. And there was a
It's a
little.
good one.
I'm a military brat, and on bases, a lot of the time there's like a little arcade, and you
Yeah.
can go there, and it's like in the youth center, and a couple times I went down there, and like it would piss me off, and I that's why I was just saying like slamming the buttons. Like I used to slap them like down like this when it would piss me off, and then the supervisors would like see, and then they would be like, "Hey, you stop doing that. Stop getting that. You gotta get out the game. Get off the game and take a break. Go outside."
Then you've
You
never
go
gotten
outside
better.
and go to the tether ball court and you punch the fuck out of the ball. I don't know if you guys know what tether ball is. I don't think schools have that no more.
Oh, I didn't know that. Digital Night in the audience brought up that the original Street Fighter arcade had pressure sensitive buttons for Street Fighter 1, and they had to replace them because of the wear and tear. Because everybody
Yeah, they
just,
did. There's
slam
a
them.
What?
arcade fairly close to me. It's more of a labor of love than for profit, because electricity is pretty expensive, and arcade machines aren't exactly the most electrically efficient. But yeah, they've
Yeah, because
got
they're
a
always
few
on.
hundred arcade games. You just like pay to get in and just hang out. All the games are free.
Oh, that's sick.
They got a whole lot of classic ones. It's the dude that owns the place just repairs them on his own time, so they fix them and all the buttons. But yeah, they go through some. It's interesting to see some of the ones that are more refurbed. Sometimes they put in some new parts, but yeah, those the Street Fighter machines that they have that are the pressure sensitive buttons, those are broken a lot.
Yeah, because you're probably in there like fucking slamming, like button mashing the fuck out of them. Actually,
Even if
I
you're
think I
not,
went
they're
to a
not very
place.
durable.
I mean, I can't. I mean, especially with kit, like I can only imagine like how much pressure I was hitting those buttons with when I was a kid, because I didn't give a
It's
fuck.
completely
It wasn't
necessary.
my game. Like,
They're as durable as my ego.
spam it as hard as shit. There was a place in that I went to in Denver. It was a bar that had an arcade, and all the games were free. But like you had to pay a cover at the door. It was like $20, I think, or $10 or something, and then you get like these drink tickets. And so you get a drink, then you go play the games, and everywhere there's like a little table next to the arcade game, and that place was pretty cool. And that place had a Street Fighter, and it had those the racing games that have like the whole bucket seat. They had a few of those. They had like one of pretty much like all the classic games in there.
Pressure sensitive
Yeah,
buttons.
I don't think.
I mean, yeah.
Even if those games still existed and were popular now, they would definitely have X'd the pressure sensitive buttons.
The only thing I
I
can
don't
think
know.
of that's
I think
close
they are
is like
kind of there.
game controllers, like the trigger buttons are usually those.
That's
those are
exactly
pressure,
what I was thinking. Yeah, the game. It's not
pressure
exactly
gradient.
pressure, but it's more of a gradient. Yeah, with the joysticks on them.
Yeah, like the triggers. The triggers usually like you basically only use that in maybe racing games, and that's probably it. But like they can detect in a gradient. It's only for Forza. Only for Forza is this used. All this
I wonder if
arcade
those
talk kind of.
controllers. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, well, I was gonna ask. Do you guys know if the triggers, if they're, is it a mechanical pressure thing, or is it just digitally reading how far you've pressed the button?
It varies.
Probably depends on the
In
controller.
more things that are 80s, 70s, 80s are almost all like physical mechanism. Once it hit 90s, RAM, just the memory became easier to send that electrical signal. You had to have the digital end on the other side.
Okay, yeah, so probably a lot less expensive to fix, because if it's an analog thing that you have to replace for it, it's probably a lot more expensive and hard
if you're not fixing it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you have to have knowledge on how to fix things in order to do
Actually,
that. So
I
it's
looked it
probably
up.
harder to maintain those older games.
There's a few different ones, like PS5 DualSense controllers use integrated gears and motors. The like Sega Dreamcast ones were magnetic mechanisms, and like the PlayStation
So when you turn
2
the
stuff was
controller, you turn
force-sensitive resistors. If you paint it red, you go faster.
So you needed to do the tilt. The tilt helped.
The stuff that TV shows always think how video games work.
Maybe that's why they thought that, or that's why
Yeah.
they do that.
The show executives had seen a Sega Dreamcast one time, and that's what all video game knowledge has been based off of for TV dramas for 30 years.
Yep.
That's sort of how racing games and Wii were. You kind of actually had to turn the controller to turn.
Yeah, gyro controllers.
Oh yeah, but that was like a mechanic with their controller. Like they were trying to have the controller be like that motion.
I mean, now we've got it back with VR.
Yeah, I was going to say VR might be bringing the motion back, but not much for PC.
They're expensive. That's why it's not so mainstream, because one, there's not great games. Like there are good games.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there aren't, but there aren't any like incredible games that are like, oh, I gotta go buy something that costs $300-$400 and gotta look like a goon wearing this fucking goggle thing.
You don't need the headset for that, Slash. Don't sell yourself short.
Like, look, I'm trying to think of mechanics that were in games that I liked in the past that they don't really use anymore, or kind of game genres that kind of died out and don't exist anymore. But there aren't that many
arena shooters. Arena shooters don't exist anymore. You know, we can just include arena shooter as its own whole mechanic. It's a whole mechanic.
Yep,
they don't work anymore. Put that in. Right now I have save mechanics and like the sub live and continue systems, leaderboard chasing, local multiplayer and split screen. Like some of these aren't dead. They still kind of exist. But like local multiplayer isn't around that much.
Yeah, the good old
random
split
overworld
screen
encounters
where you could fucking hit your buddy and be like, "Stop screen looking, bitch."
Yep. Quick time
or
events.
You fucking reach over and you fuck up their control and smack it down, and then you take them out before they can get the controller back up.
Yep.
Secret rooms are not as common in a lot of games nowadays.
That's a good one. I'll put that in.
Yeah.
There.
Secret rooms were a good game mechanic.
I mean, like, you will find them every now and again, but they used to be like in every game and in multiple places in every level. But
yeah, but you know what the problem is?
Pretty rare.
The games nowadays, because of the internet, it's impossible to have a secret room, because once one person finds it, he hops on Reddit. He's like, "Hey guys, I found something cool. Go check it out."
I mean, there have always been walkthroughs in games.
That's true, but you used to have to like spend money on those little books and guides and shit to like get all that stuff.
Oh yeah, Nintendo had a pretty crazy service for that. There was a whole aftermarket thing for walkthroughs. Before internet got big, you could actually like dial in a phone line and like ask for help on Legend of Zelda level or like a Super Mario. There was actually a live phone desk of people supporting that.
Phone a friend, baby.
Yeah, that actually became a challenge when developing became a lot more widespread and more people were able to publish their own titles. It caused a bit of a crunch because, well, how are they going to train people on all of the secrets on these games if they're releasing too quickly?
Oh, wow. That's a whole industry.
Now they don't even spend money on having Q&A or customer support anymore. Never mind people to give you guides.
They don't want to talk to nobody.
I think talking about all that arcade stuff kind of brings us into like leaderboard chasing. Like leaderboards do exist in games. I feel like a lot of times the people at the top of the leaderboards are just the people who are hacking somehow. Like
Pac-Man.
Reminds me of playing Pac-Man Championship Edition DX, and like all of the replays of the top score or somebody like spinning in circles in the corner. It's like, congratulations, you cheated at Pac-Man. You've reached the pinnacle of humanity.
I think speedrunning is taken a little into the leaderboard-ish, but it's still not quite the same as like a Pac-Man leaderboard, because a Pac-Man leaderboard was not about speedrunning, right? Because you could get to the highest level without getting the highest score. It was about getting the highest score.
Yeah, it's about scoring and surviving.
Yeah, without a score in the game, like, I guess that's a little trickier for a leaderboard.
Yeah, I guess racing games kind of have that. Yeah. Forza keeps it alive.
I haven't played that many racing games.
And I mean, I guess there's adjacent things, like you have rank systems in games. Those are leaderboards. They're not like necessarily a straight up high score leaderboard, but it's like hey, you were good enough and or you pre-made enough to get this high
I
up.
can actually think of a modern example. It's a mobile game, though. It's like League of Legends type. It's a MOBA, Arena of Valor. But there is a player skill system for whichever hero you pick. And if you win with them a lot, it'll actually track, are you the highest in your region, highest in your country? And then there's a different ranking for like server best. So if you're a ranking like top 50, it will list that to other players.
Oh, that's kind of cool. It's a MOBA. Oh, this looks kind of like League of Legends. This is a mobile game.
Sort of reminds me of like what Battlefield did for a while. Like Battlefield 4 had where they did everything through the browser, including launching the game because reasons. But that had like a whole stat system. That was like really the last time I super tryharded at a shooter was Battlefield 4. Like it wanted to be Division 1 everything. As Division 1 for score per minute, and KDR is mostly medic, which I mean is kind of easy to do as medic. You put on the boosters and you play Operation Locker. you get to Division 1 easy. But Division 1 was like top 3% in the world for whatever the stat was. Like killed KDR or score per minute or total kills or kills with a gun or whatever specific thing for a class, revives.
So how would that be visible? Would that be visible to other players in like your player profile, or is that visible to you in your player profile?
And for Battlefield 4, like again, they had everything through the browser. Like launching the game was through your browser because they wanted to do that gimmick for whatever reason. And so like on there, they had a bunch of stats and you'd have leaderboards for stuff. And then people were like above and below you for region or global or whatever. I think it was even down to in your state. Like you'd be like, oh, I'm Division 2 in my state for being a medic or whatever. So you'd see other people on those stats that you were like competing against at whatever level. And it was on your profile, but you'd see it through like when you're looking at like the stats for your weapon or stats for your class. So it's pretty sophisticated. And like modern Battlefields don't really do that, though they have like third-party stat tracker sites that try and replicate it. But Battlefield 4 was doing it officially as like just a ton of different stat stuff, which was kind of neat. It made you try hard. Cool. It made me try hard.
I wonder why they stopped doing. Do they still do that in the new Battlefields or?
Not that much, I don't think. It's probably because they just use all of the metrics now for player engagement instead of...
Yeah, they want to sell all our information. They don't want to present it back to us.
They got the netcode figured out. They don't need to make it through a web browser anymore.
Backtracking to thinking in video games, I just wanted to bring up Morrowind's like quest directions. Like it would tell you to go west on this road and then neglect to tell you that you actually needed to go across the ocean to an island, which is still technically west, but not on the road. And you would waste like hours finding this dungeon. Like Morrowind instructions, like that wouldn't happen in modern games. You had to like, it was really vague.
That's true.
The instructions were always
not just
really
having
vague.
to read, not just having to listen, but also having to explore, because that definitely mileage may vary in how accurate those descriptions were.
Yeah, you had instructions that were also had unreliable narrator impacts to them. So like Oblivion, Skyrim, and ESO, it's like quest marker everything. Like maybe they popularized the quest marker the most. It's like Skyrim, just follow the compass.
Yeah, that wasn't even the worst thing about Morrowind. Had that weird ass leveling system in it too, where you would whatever you used the most and leveled up during that sleep cycle or whatever that you were awake, because then you go to sleep and then you'd have a dream and then you'd be able to level up some stats depending on what you were using. That was one of the most unhinged ways of leveling that I've ever played before. Like it was not a good system, but it was a system.
And most of your attacks missed at the start too, and like your skills suck. You just miss most of your attacks, and like it's not a problem for most of the game. But like the start, people hate the combat because of the first like 5 hours of the game where you're swinging
you're
at
clowned by
cliff
those
racer.
Fucking mud crabs, dude. Do you remember the fucking mud crabs?
The mud crabs go hard, and cliff racers. Cliff racers are traumatic. Actually, Oblivion had sleeping it for level up too, didn't it? I mean, Oblivion's skill systems were kind of different, but I thought it had sleeping
I don't.
as the
I
level up
think it
mechanic.
was sleeping, but it wasn't based off of what you leveled up during the awake period or whatever you want to call it, like when you were awake and playing, like
attribute
Morrowind was.
based.
Like you were
Yeah, it was
locked into
time-based.
being able to level up whatever the hell it was that you were using during that time. So if you're using one-handed weapons, you had to level something in that, or you could only put strength attribute or something. So if you wanted to build magic later on, you wouldn't be able to unless you stuck to, casting fireball or whatever the hell that first spell was.
I remember that. And you actually couldn't even unlock the better spells unless you had used it a certain bit too, because that'd say you wouldn't have enough proficiency.
That. Yep.
Spam fireball. Gotta get destruction
That
up.
was a game that you needed one of the Prima guides for. I think I had the guide for
Yeah, it was.
That kind of made me think about another mechanic that you don't see as much. You see it in certain genres, but accuracy is a mechanic. Like, accuracy is a mechanic in a first-person RPG, for instance, that would be like big no-no now. Like, you could get away with it in Morrowind days. Now you have it in like classic RPGs like Baldur's Gate or something, or the modern Pathfinder games, because they're adapting the tabletop where it's like, okay, you might actually miss, but not in a system where like the player is controlling the aim as well, and then having it still accuracy check on top of that. Like, you'd have it in like XCOM and you'd have it in classic RPGs, but you probably wouldn't have miss mechanics that much outside of specifically RPG genre stuff. That's
gotta aim that bullet and hope it actually hits, even though it hit.
And RNG. And RNG gotcha shooter.
I mean, I'm gonna be real. I don't miss that. Fuck that. If I nailed that motherfucker and it was under my crosshair, fuck that game. If it fucking decides that it's gonna give me a D0 or a nat 0 or whatever the fuck it makes me lose. Fuck that.
That's how I feel like Apex's netcode works sometimes.
To me, I felt like in Apex and Call of Duty, the reason I stopped playing those two games was because I felt like I got to the point where I was good enough at the game and I could feel like something in the background, some invisible force was causing some kind of fucking registry thing. Like, it was helping the other person. It was giving them auto aim or something, or it was making my bullets not hurt them, or it was down cycling my registry of my bullets or something. It just felt like the game was working against me, even if I was fucking aiming right at their fucking head.
Apex really felt like that, because like every time I came back to Apex, the first few matches would be like, oh, the hit registry is really good now, and then you get to the point where like you're watching replays back and it's like, okay, here's all these shield effects coming off of all these shotgun pellets, and it's like 8 damage, and then you're like basically playing Borderlands Ultimate Vault Hunter fuck you Elden Ring edition, and then they're playing Arma 3. It's like, oh, they clipped you with one bullet in the knee, red shield's gone, you're dead. It's like I have to reassemble the shotgun inside their fucking throat to kill them, and then they can just just hit fire. I hit mostly the building, but it still broke your shields. It's me just getting salted. I need to get good.
Mind when I'm playing games, I can't fucking stand it, dude. I lose it.
Or OG Fortnite, the old Fortnite days, where it was like you'd sneak up on somebody with a John Wick skin, shoot him dead center with a pumpy, 12 damage, and then they turn around and one shot you.
Yeah, 360 headshot. And that was
playing fucking AD&D here.
Build one too. You didn't have that no build.
Yep, nope.
You had, so then there was also kids that would like spin their avatar around, and all of a sudden they're in a fucking house
instantly.
Yeah.
That's had build Fortnite as a dead mechanic. It's not, but I wish it was. Because I'm trash. Those people are too good at that.
I feel like building in Fortnite is carrying over bad mechanics from games of old, like having to pull out your bag to get something, like trying to swap what arrows you're using, or different boomerang or something in Zelda. Like, you have to pull up the whole damn menu, go through a whole screen, versus just hit a button and use it. way clunkier
Yeah,
in terms of
I
game
really
liked
fluidity.
it. Although
Playing
there's a game
Dwarf
I'm playing
Fortress
right now
and
that does
X3
that.
desensitized me to menus.
Oh, do you have to like quickly go into a menu and like swap something and then hop back out into gameplay on those?
X3's
Dwarf Fortress
gameplay
is a menu.
Yeah, Dwarf Fortress is like now they actually have an actual interface, but for a while it was just all key commands. So like even knowing how to do anything is like you gotta have the wiki up on the other page to remember how to give any commands.
ASCII
It'd be like,
graphics.
okay, press D and then P and then Shift V and then E.
Good fucking lord. Yeah, no.
And then
That sounds like
X3
too much
was all nested
memorization.
lists.
Jeez. This is
What
X3
game were
you're
you
talking
saying?
about?
Yeah, it's the space game. You've seen me play X4. X4 fixes that by most of the stuff being done from the map. You don't have lists anymore. But X3 and the older ones was like everything's from a property list. Like, okay, you're gonna look in this list, look under your ships. You're gonna open another list to give them an order, open another list to send them to a certain sector.
Oh no, I don't think I couldn't play that. I would not be good at that.
X4 controls so much better because it's like you open the map, just like an RTS. You click your thing on the map, tell it what you want it to do. It's like boom, so much better. You were saying you were playing a game recently that was like interface heavy.
No. Well, what Ross was saying was he hated like switching between arrows and different ammunitions and stuff, and that
yeah.
Delta Force game makes you do
Say
that.
Fortnite. That's a pretty the way the building is. It feels like you have to pull up an interface to build. It's not quite
Radials.
as bad, but it's the same bad idea.
But some
Yeah,
people
Delta
are
Force has
capable
ammo
of doing
radials.
it so fast. Like my fingers don't move that quickly, so I don't know how they're doing what they're doing when all of those
Brain
things
don't
are
go
on
that
different
fast.
keys.
I've seen
Yeah,
him
my
do it
brain
that
goes-
fast on phone. Like I watched like YouTube videos of people doing that on phone. It's like holy crap.
Oh yeah, that game is
Ain't
on
no way.
mobile, huh?
Yep.
Do you play with mobile people when you're playing on the computer?
I don't know if the mobile is the same version as PC and console.
That would be unhinged.
It'd be crazy if so.
Like that would be nuts if you lose and embarrassing.
I just
Honestly,
think of
if you
that.
lose to somebody on a fucking cell phone.
I know for
How
PUBG
demoralizing.
you don't. PUBG is different because they have different mechanics in the mobile game. So even though it is cross-platform through some things, the mobile and PC do not cross-talk there.
Mhm.
How about speaking of interface stuff, how about QuickTime events? Do you remember QuickTime events? That
What,
was
like where
spicy, so
you
we
have
get
to
his
like
whole buttons.
button mash something like really fast?
Yeah, you have to do a sequence of buttons, or it's usually like a cutscene, and you got to press the buttons in the right order. Like
Oh,
those were
shit. I
those were the
struggled
hot
with
shit
those.
for a while.
I never really liked those types of things.
God of
I
War
wouldn't-
had a lot
didn't
of them.
struggle with them, but they weren't like a thing that I miss. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm
Now
happy
we're
that
in the
those
age of,
they
like-
got rid of that shit.
I remember the last big game I can think of that had really QTEs lightly, but they had it for a major moment, which was Dying Light. Like the ending is basically, other than the prologue, is the only part of the game you can't play in co-op because you can do the story and pretty much everything in co-op. But the ending is a boss fight that's just all QTE. Like it's not even really a boss fight; it's just a cutscene with QTEs.
Was your inputting?
Is
Yeah,
that
it's
Can you
PC?
like-
lose it?
Yeah, you can lose it. It just makes you do it again. But like, this is like the actual finale of the entire story of the game. Is like, here's a cutscene where okay, we're gonna spam E and we're gonna hit Q and we're swinging the machete. It's like the whole time, the whole game, you're drop kicking zombies off of rooftops and like sliding into them with electrified Kopeshes and stuff. And in the ending is like, oh, we got a cutscene. Oh, it's like Far Cry. Because Dying
That's
Light really
kinda
wanted to be
lame.
like Far Cry in the story. Yeah.
Oh man, that's
Is that more of a console mechanic? Is there many QTEs in many PC games? You can think of a lot of examples in console and handhelds.
It's probably games that were like both, but were initially designed for console. Because like that was basically the era where like console was the big thing. Now I feel like PC's made a resurgence. And it's like Microsoft has kind of pivoted to the service front instead of console wars, even though Sony's still trying to fight a console war in a war that no longer exists. But yeah, I think you're right. It used to be more like that. It made sense in something like the Wii, like in back to Call of Duty 3 at the zenith of my life. You'd have melee quick times and stuff with the Wii remotes where it's like Nazi ambushes you in the door and you'd like swing the nunchuck to bash him with your Thompson and stuff.
Or the dog would get onto you and you had to get the dog off with a QTE in one of them.
Yeah.
I don't remember if that's 3 or 2 or not.
Now the farthest most games go is usually like a hold button.
There's something sort of like that in Guild Wars. In one of the fights in Icebrood Saga, you run in, and if you get hit by the icicle that falls from the ceiling, you get frozen. And then you have to spam 1 to get out of it. But it's not really... Like, you don't get punished if you don't do it fast. But you have to spam the button to get out of the ice. That's
There's Aquatic Ruins.
Jormag. What's an Aquatic Ruins?
In Aquatic Ruins, in the boss, if
like
it sucks
puzzle,
you and you have to play the little Guitar Hero thing.
Yeah. I guess those are like...
that one would be timed.
Those are
because that one will kill you.
Yeah, you take damage over time as you're eating.
But theoretically, I guess a healer could heal you through it.
Can they heal you while you're inside?
Untargetable.
Does AoE work?
If you already had regen or something on you, I mean, that would still be ticking, but you wouldn't be targetable for other attacks, like even AoE heals.
How about, I think this is a good topic. How about split screen and local multiplayer? Like, there are games that still utilize this, but I feel like split screen is pretty uncommon, probably because games have gotten to the point that they're barely rendering a single screen, and they're just using FSR and or DLSS to be almost playable in the first place, so rendering the game twice is probably out of the option. But like, yeah, party games.
You also have
they want to show off their graphics.
Borderlands.
You also have to be
Borderlands
like
3
social
had
enough to
two
go to
did.
someone's house for a split screen.
Yeah.
Or local multiplayer.
Well, not exactly. It takes two. Some of the more modern ones that are still split screen are remote. It's not. It is a different way, but like I'm playing on my PC, you're playing on your PC, different places, but it's still split screen.
What game is like that?
It Takes Two.
It Takes Two.
Oh, yeah, and I think they just released a Split Fiction, right? The same devs, I think, just released a new game.
They did.
There's also like there's the Steam thing where you can stream a game for like a local multiplayer game, but you can stream the game to another person on Steam, and then it streams their input back to your PC. So games that don't actually have online multiplayer, you can play for that. Like it used that for Spelunky and like the Tales games, like playing Tales of Symphonia and Vesperia co-op.
A Way Out. A Way Out's another pretty good one. You do a prison break.
Oh yeah, Way Out was pretty big.
Why have I never heard of that? A Way Out.
It's an EA original.
Yeah, it's a mobile
Steam?
split screen. Yeah, I believe so.
Is that actually the same? Are all three of those like? Is that the same devs as whatever game we were just talking about? It Takes Two, or is those separate?
It is. It's the same.
Yeah.
Dev.
A Way Out, It Takes Two, Split Fiction.
Have something called Split Fiction that just came out.
Split Fiction kind of reminds me of like just from the trailer of it reminds me of like Dreamfall. Or like Longest Journey kind of premise. But yeah, their thing seems to be like the 2-player local co-op as a niche.
Certainly more of a niche though than as mainstream as before.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
That's what we should be using Tinder for. That's what we should buy Tinder Black for. Pay $500 to find people to play the 3 split screen games that get released this decade. This is a meta strat. I've got it, guys. We got it figured out.
You're gonna go recruit some more guild mates and gamer friends.
If Bumble's gonna charge us $40 per month, then I'm gonna get some EA originals out of it.
Oh, Outward is like that too. Oh no, it's not. It's not.
Yeah, actually,
It's
yeah,
not
Dan
split screen.
Outward had split screen, didn't it? I thought, or one of the
Did it?
editions of it did. I thought. I only played it single player because I'm not cool, but I thought Outward did have
It's on sale
split
right now.
screen.
That's why it just came up.
I think they
Sounds
can
like it
show
does.
off more of their artwork with the bigger screen. There's a lot more focus on that. Right, that's more of like a marketing though. Look at all my pretty figurines.
I think they should make split screen VR games.
That would be unhinged.
But would it be unranked?
How would that even work? Like one eye is one screen, and then
That's the joke.
You're
It
a
wouldn't
pirate.
work. Yar. That one's on us, Ubisoft. That one's for free. You can have that idea for Skull and Bones.
Getting motion sick thinking about that.
All right. How about like regional mechanics, like mechanics that are really only in certain types of games, or like for an example, back to the saving thing, like save circles and saving in specific points of games. I feel like you only see that in JRPGs anymore. Like you have to find a save circle, or you use a consumable to save. I mean, I guess like Kingdom Come Deliverance says you have the schnapps that lets you save anywhere, but most of the time, or like even Yakuza still uses that. Yakuza like 0, you save at phone booths, for instance.
yeah.
Damn,
I think the
Rayman.
Souls-like games do
Rayman
that.
killed me.
That's true.
Oh,
Bonfires.
Rayman.
Getting to those
Yeah,
damn
the
checkpoints that
Mhm.
so easy to die.
And then there was always like a hard jump right before you get to one.
Oh, absolutely.
And then using it resets all the enemies too, so it's like a risk reward thing, but also a grinding mechanic, which happens to be one of the other topics
for the
we
Dark
have on here.
Souls,
Yeah,
like the bonfires.
yeah.
There was another game that recently came out that had that too. Let me see. It's in my library.
I mean,
but I'm
that's
not
turned
really
into a
good at
whole
it.
genre of like, having systems around making it to a bonfire or bonfire stand-in.
Remnant did that. Remnant from the Ashes.
Oh yeah,
But like you were saying, everything respawns. So then you could go straight to the boss room if you cleared it. And then it might be easier because there's no ads. But the fire would heal you, and then everything would respawn, and you were saved there. So you had to like weigh your options when it came to that.
It basically forces you to play like a little chunk of the level as good as you can, like take as little damage as possible so you have resources, because if you go back, you get your resources back, but then the enemies come back as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it lets you level up your attributes and stuff so you suck less. That kind of brings us into another thing I had written down, which is grinding for XP. That's like, I feel like a JRPG kind of thing. Like games in general, RPGs, MMOs kind of have that, but it's usually like a direct progression thing instead of like you do it to make the game easier. Like in a JRPG,
Yeah.
It's sort of your difficulty slider is how long did you spend grinding stuff on the way to somewhere. Or you have BDO where
It's more
the
of
way
the
to
Eastern.
yeah.
That's one I would say is probably a regional mechanic. A lot of, even today, more of the grindy games are pretty much all Eastern MMOs. Not China, more Korea based.
Lost Ark and Black Desert.
In BDO,
Ace
grinding
Online.
isn't a means to an end. The grinding is the end.
Yeah, that is the in-game content.
And it never
Just
does end
grind more.
either.
Never ends. It's infinite. We have it so
It's
easy
never
in the
held my
West with our little live service FOMO battle pass bullshit. In BDO, you ain't beating that no battle pass in like 30 hours of gameplay. If you wanna be at all competitive, you better have that game running 24/7.
Yep. And if not, you better
Better be
fucking pony
rotation
up
down.
some fucking money, and not a little bit of it either. Like a few hundred,
Yep.
maybe 1,000.
Especially if you want to do PvP. I think it's probably less now, but it used to be that you'd fight people for the grind zones as well. You wanted to have like the optimal route between mobs. You'd have your rotation down. You'd duel people for the grind zone so that only you had the mobs for that period.
Yeah, that was old Black Desert. When I played, I used to do that, and I had a zone that I would always get bullied out of. So then I just stopped grinding unless my one strong PvP friend was online, because then when they would come and bully me, he would come and he would wipe the floor with them, and then I'd go back to doing my, like, the second he was there and I got kicked out, I'd be there for like 5 minutes. I'd message him like, yo, there's people here, come kill them. And he'd come over, and he was good at the game and had really good gear. He'd whoop their ass usually like 90% of the time, and then while he's fighting them, I wouldn't even help him. I would just go back to grinding. And I'm like, oh, all the mobs are mine again. And then he'd stay there for like 10, 15 minutes and the second he left, I'd get ganked again. And then he'd have to come back. And like, he didn't care because he was either grinding nearby or he was just bored and wanted to kill people.
You're like the Thor meme of, you can't kill me, I know, but he can.
Yeah, pretty much. That was me in Black Desert.
Definitely not a change I'm upset with. Games being more respectful of your time in general. Because just from a PvP perspective, exactly what you said, Slash. Like, the lad's got gear, he's got the level. It's like he's put countless hours into that. How, like, to a certain extent, you sort of objectively can't even compete if there's too much of a gap. Sorry, you need to put a few hundred more hours in there, then try again.
Yeah. 100%.
And that's just for the gear, not even for anything you're pressing.
Yeah, and like old BDO, I think there were armor sets that you could get. I don't know if it was like if you paid directly to the game store to get the sets, or if this was like some illegal, like off the game market type of shit. But he was a programmer in California. And like, he was getting good money and he didn't go out. So like, classic, like, at home gamer all the time, like, didn't spend his money but made a lot of it. I'm pretty sure he had like $3,000-$4,000 into BDO. That's why, like, it didn't really matter who the fuck it was. He had a high level character. It wasn't max. I think it was like 63 or 64 or something like that.
Well, there isn't a max.
Then, I think the max back then was there. I mean, there is no max.
It's a soft max.
Yeah, it was like you just keep. I think like the max was around 60. Like, that was what people like said was end game. And if you got anywhere past that, then you were just, it was just gravy.
Like leaderboard chasing.
He had real fucking paid gear that he had paid money for. And so, like, even if you don't know all the combos, if you know like one or two plus that gear, you were destroying anyone that came up on you.
That block your way to victory.
Like 2v3, or if there was one other person that helped him a little bit, he could take on like a whole fucking squad of dudes and kick them out of an area.
Gear progression in BDO is fucked up, man. Like, if you've never really tried to progress gear in that game, like, you can get your shit to like it's rated like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. Getting it up to 2 and 3, fairly reasonable, but getting it up to 4, the in-game money, it starts to cost billions of.
Exponential.
And it's not a guaranteed upgrade. There's a chance of upgrade. And it gets better. Not only is there a chance of upgrade, there is a chance of failure, breaking the item, or degrading the item. So you took this rank 3 item, now it's rank 4, maybe it's rank 3, maybe it's destroyed and doesn't exist anymore. Could be back down to rank 2 also. Either way, you lost all those billions you just spent of your in-game money on it. Kids fucked up.
Buying something for a few $100 and then you go to try to upgrade it and it breaks. Like, there goes all that real world money. Like, what?
Just go to a casino.
Precursor collections in Guild Wars 2. I had an Australian friend who would pay like thousands of dollars real money to buy everything off the trading post and gamble it for precursors in the Mystic Forge. And sometimes he wouldn't even get a precursor and he'd just do it again next week. Like this dude funded the art team for Heart of Thorns probably at the time. The thousands of dollars account thing kind of reminded me of Perfect World a little bit. I remember people would have like, you know, their $5,000 worth Perfect World account. I never played that game, but I remember it being like people spent a lot of money into that.
Yeah.
Now that
well, you know what? Now we're talking about mechanics. I played that game. You know what? I don't know if there's any MMO right now that has this. But in Perfect World, one of the iterations of that game had a bot system built into the fucking game. Like the game, if you just had it on, you turned it on and it would grind for you. Like it would just play the game and you'd be killing mobs wherever the fuck you needed to kill them. Like it within that area, it would just keep running you around and you would just auto attack stuff. It would use your skills
as an MMO.
Yeah, it was an MMO. It was Perfect World, and you just had to turn it on, and then you could grind all day. Like, and back then I was in high school when I played that game. I would turn the computer on and I would just set the game to play, and then I would fuck off, go about my day, and then I'd come back later and I would be like 1 or 2 levels higher, and I'd probably be like done with that area, and then I could move on and do the quest or whatever. Or I'd have like an inventory full of bullshit that I could sell. And that's not something that any MMO that I can think of right now has.
It's called idle games nowadays.
Yeah, there's mobile games that have like auto pathing and stuff, but it's not usually like the full thing. Like I'm playing AFK Arena, AFK Journey rather, which a lot of the premise is around like, you know, the game sort of plays itself, at least semi, like you have to interact with stuff, but you can path to the next story step or whatever it is. The combat is like auto chess gameplay.
Maybe BDO, and that's a bit of a stretch. Once you get in game, you can kind of make an empire and build houses and buy housing, and you can also hire workers. And the workers, like maybe one of the shops you built in this town, you built it into a workshop. Well, now if you have a carpenter, you can assign your worker to go there and build shit. And he builds at a certain rate over time. And he can only build so much. And it is kind of passive, but it is an MMO. But it's not your character being the one running around doing things. It's your empire running.
Beer is how you keep the meat.
They run on beer.
Is it meat?
Is true.
Yeah, it's either meat or beer. Beer is like how you fuel everything.
And then couldn't you would get like material in certain towns and you'd have to send it to a different town to get processed, right? I think I kind of vaguely remember that system.
Yeah, it's like the node system, yeah.
Because
now that Trahir's in the audience, I can talk shit. I can talk shit about him.
You have to put your character to fish, right? Do you remember that?
Yeah, AFK fishing, that's a big money maker. Just leave the game running.
Yeah, AFK fishing.
The game lets you minimize it to tray too for like low power mode, so you can just leave it running forever fishing.
Yep.
Trahir, like, because I was talking about BDO when I got into it after the season updates, and he's like, I'm not playing BDO. And then next week he got into BDO for a while, right, Trahir? I lured you in, I baited your ass into the corruption of BDO.
I do remember when he got sucked into that game, and it was like a good 2-3 months that he played it. Because that
like
was right
Naval
before
Guild and everything. Yeah, he outpaced me.
What game was it that he was going to play? It wasn't Path of Exile. It was that other one. It was about.
It was the Last Epoch.
Yes, Last Epoch. He was waiting for it, and then he ended up diving into BDO. Bro lost 2 months of his life.
Autoplay was a good one to bring up. I didn't think about that. Like, yeah, there's a fair amount of usually Eastern games and or mobile games that let you have the game play themselves either partly or sometimes fully.
Well, I guess I was mistaken though, because it spawned a whole genre.
Yeah.
Like you guys were saying.
Yeah, I mean, MOBAs today, they started out as Warcraft 3 mods.
That's true.
Defense of the Ancients. That was a
What a jump from like an escalation from a mod for Warcraft 3 to Arcane.
I think 7 Days to Die was more or less that too. That pioneered the battle royale genre. It was a 7 Days to Die mod, and now the battle royale genre exists.
And stuff like Daisy and Minecraft Hunger Games and stuff like that. Like all of those they were all mods though. Like none of them were real games.
Mm-hmm.
And then now Fortnite
Daisy,
makes like
man.
$250 million
That
every
Daisy mod
quarter
was
or
so
whatever.
fucking jank.
$500 million. Daisy was pretty.
Yeah, it was
janky.
good.
Arma's janky in general.
Yeah.
Played mini games with search engines in them. It's just checking out Daggerfall a little bit. It's Elder Scrolls 2. That one, it had a pretty neat, you could enter the name of a place on your map and it would actually find it. I think it's something like that. If it existed in Guild Wars 2, I would use the heck out of that. Here's a giant ass map and you can't like type in the name of a place and find it.
Wish kind of lets you do that.
Yeah, but that's add-ons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Daggerfall had a map, a playable space the size of like Great Britain, I thought as well. It had just an absolutely massive map.
Yeah, it was incredibly huge.
Elder Scrolls 6 needs to step it up and catch back up to Daggerfall.
It's got some big shoes to fill.
All right, how about we'll finish up with and the last regional mechanic I thought of was like visual novel storytelling, like reading a whole lot in games. Like that's pretty much also probably specifically, I guess it's generally Eastern. I guess, like there's both Japanese and Chinese games that do that. Like again, Arknights says
there was no voice lines.
Yeah, where they're like visual novel format where it's like usually just artwork and a lot of reading. Like visual novels are their own actual genre of like it's you just read and they usually have branching paths. Like we've been watching Steins Gate recently again, which is based off a visual novel, and the Fate franchise was also originally a visual novel. And then you have games that are not necessarily visual novels themselves, but like Arknights or different gachas, a lot of their storytelling is in that format. Like Arknights has multiple novels worth of word length. Like it's something like it's over 1 million words now, or 1.5 million words for the like script length. It's just a ton of reading. I think that's what got you salted about it partially, right? You're like skip.
Yeah, well, it made me not give a fuck about the story. Like you were always talking about how good the story was, and I was just like,
I simp so hard for
spacebar. Get me to the fucking game. Fuck this. Like I don't care about any of these characters.
And in the fucking game was you failing to use Surtur skill 3. It's gonna be a running bit.
Fuck that game.
It's a running bit / using Surtur.
I don't know. There are some that still use that. I just more associate them nowadays that with more like a dating sim or just like a lower budget game. But I do definitely still see. Yeah, Doki Doki Literature Club. That's a great example. That's probably the most modern one I can think of. That isn't like a dating sim.
I've never played a dating sim game.
Doki Doki is a pretty warm and fluffy game. You should check it out.
Sounds
Ace Attorney
up my alley.
Nice, Ross. Yeah, Digital Knight was bringing up Ace Attorney. Yeah, that's a big one.
See, I thought you were talking about like those like the Walking Dead game where it's like it's all story and you're just kind of picking what the character how it reacts and then it plays
Telltale
like,
games,
kind of like a movie.
Yeah, there's games like that too. You have like all of the Telltale's games are like that, and then stuff like Heavy Rain and Detroit Become Human. Basically, there's 2 games. Well, actually, that's not true. There's like 3 game devs that make that. There's Don't Nod is who makes Life is Strange, right? Life is Strange is a little more active. You actually do move around and stuff, but a lot of the game is like cinematic dialogue.
It is very cinematic dialogue, but I don't think it's the visual novel type 2D presentation. It is 3D.
Yeah, Slash was talking about basically like an adjacent concept where it's still story heavy, but it's like at least animated.
Yeah, like you're basically just watching a cutscene, and then you have influence over what the next cutscene you get to see is.
Heavy Rain brings it all together because it's the story-heavy stuff, and then it's the QuickTime events we were talking about earlier. The entire game is just dialogue options and QuickTime events. And for those who want a quick laugh, just look up the scene. There's a YouTube video of somebody intentionally failing like a Heavy Rain chase scene, and a guy just laughing his ass off to it. It's like that. If you're having a bad day, just watch that. That and Sean. Game bugs out and just it lets him keep spamming the Sean like dialogue button. But there's like a chase scene where they're like running through a grocery mart, and if you fail all of the QuickTime events, it's like he flips over a car, and then he's like sliding across ice, and then he flops over like one of the delicatessen like fish stands, and there's just this guy watching it just absolutely laughing his ass, wheezing to the animations of the main character failing.
I'm seeing it right now. Yeah, you're right. This is the guy's laugh is what makes this video funny.
It is, yeah. It's
He's
like
just
laughing by watching somebody or listening to somebody else laugh, making you laugh. It's like the epitome of that kind of thing.
Stupid. I gotta turn this off.
Get distracted. That's a good pick me up if your day just really sucks. You just watch that, and remember that your failures are that funny to somebody else. Slash getting salted at Marvel Rivals is that funny to me. Not really. I get about as salted as you do.
You should hear me getting salted, and well, no, it's not as bad as Marvel Rivals. Marvel Rivals was getting me toxic, bro. Fuck.
That and Paladins
Just
brought out the
thinking about
worst
it
in
is
me.
making me mad.
There was
those games that started out as mods, that just MOBAs and battle royales in general, those have definitely bred a new kind of gameplay in the PvP, and it's certainly less friendly than the split screen on the couch we're thinking back on.
I'm trying to think of what. There's no games kind of like, it's not really a game mechanic, or I guess it kind of is, but I don't know what it would be called. But you remember those games that were first-person shooters that were like real fast-paced, like Unreal Tournament, where
arena
really
shooters.
fast. Is that called an arena shooter? But like it had the health boosts and the damage boosts on the map. That's an arena shooter. That's what that's
Quake
called?
and Unreal or arena shooters. Actually, that was something on the list right there.
Popular anymore.
Nope, they keep trying to make them, but
what's a current one?
There is no current.
Apex Legends, maybe.
It's not.
No, that's sort of team based. That's not quite the same.
I mean,
Quake, you could have multiple teams.
It has arena shooter mechanics, but it's not an arena shooter otherwise. Arena shooters are usually small scale, and they keep trying to make them, but they can't take off. The skill ceiling's too high.
Should come back. They need to remake, not remake it. Make a new Unreal Tournament and a new Quake.
They've tried, and they don't succeed ever. People don't like arena shooters anymore.
Play those?
It's because you have a community that's like really good at it, and so it makes it less accessible than like Call of Duty, where you don't have to be good. In arena shooters, it's like you have fast movement. It's like the Titanfall problem. You have fast movement, you need good aim, and then you're playing against people who have played Unreal and Quake for 30 years and are like the only people who played it. So you're going up against the Praetorian elites.
Team Fortress 2.
Yeah.
Team Fortress.
That is the same genre. It is an arena shooter.
It is. I'd almost say it's like the gap between an arena shooter and like what's become a hero shooter.
Yeah,
it's close.
Because it is kind of a hero. It's like a arena shooter, or what the old style Quake games were doing. Had a baby with a hero shooter, and then they shat out TF2.
Yeah, and they had the pickups and stuff. You had health pickups and ammo pickups and all that, but then you had all the class mechanics on top of it. And like, I feel like arena shooters usually had unique weaponry. It was like you weren't just using ARs and SMGs most of the time. It was like rocket launcher, pulse rifle, like
That's
all of
true.
the
You could
weapons
pick
were
up whatever weapon.
non-standard weapons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
the
true. Team
type
Fortress
of shooter
is
where
your
you're picking up
class.
guns. I don't like the games that where you can imbalance the gameplay because you have this attachment unlocked because you've been playing for 50 hours. You can't
Well, what
be
about
beaten
Halo?
by a person who just started. Halo is good because you pick up the weapons. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I miss in a shooter. Like, I want a shooter where, like, yeah, you might
Standardized
spawn with one
gear.
gun, but then you can go throughout the map and go pick up like a better one, or you can find the rocket launcher or the sniper rifle, and then you can get like a damage boost or something, or you can get health from a map pickup.
Fortnite.
You have all the battle royales.
But it's not
Yeah,
battle.
definitely not the same
battle.
genre.
Nope.
I still want the quick respawn. Like,
Or
you
are
die,
they?
you respawn, and then it's a time thing. Whatever team gets the most kills at the end of like 10 minutes, with all those other mechanics that I was talking about. That's, I guess maybe is Halo still a thing? I don't even know.
Yeah, Halo's still
I
going.
don't think
kind
Halo's released a game for a long time.
I think Infinite was last. Is a
It's kind of a
battle
re-release,
royale
though,
actually
wasn't it?
just a? It was a new game.
2021. That's pretty old. You're
Master
right. That
Chief
is
Collection
the
was a
last.
re-release. Remix.
Yeah.
Ah, gotcha.
Remaster.
Oh, Infinite
yeah.
is free? I didn't know that.
It's on Game Pass. The multiplayer is free. The campaign's not.
Okay.
I think that's how Halo 1 was. You could technically play the online multiplayer with just the free demo, but none of the campaign.
Man, I haven't played Halo in a long time.
Our
I
battle
remember getting my
royales
first
just
Xbox
bigger
with
and
Halo.
bigger and slower arena shooters with worse netcode.
Kind of are. More torture because you waste 20 minutes, 20, 30 minutes, and then you get killed. And then right at the end, and it stings a lot harder than
Yeah.
like a 10-minute match where you can quick respawn. You might be getting spawn camped or like killed over and over, but at least you're playing and you're shooting at somebody. You can go like 20 minutes in those battle royale games and then right at the end get murked.
Yep.
I mean, those are a lot of fun for one side. Getting spawn camped is not as fun.
Yeah. That's so true.
Is spawn camping still a mechanic? I feel like a lot of games try to prevent that now. But like Team Fortress 2 days, you could absolutely spawn camp the other team.
Yeah.
And Call of Duty,
There's a lot of mechanics against it.
Call of Duty just has Call of Duty spawning, so the gameplay is spawn camping because there isn't a spawn and they just spawn you in front of people's crosshairs where they're already shooting. So this topic was voted on by the gaming community we're a part of, and we have a couple more topics that they've already voted on coming up, which are tech wars, pretty relevant right now, between NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel, and in the good old era of Flash games, browser games, Adobe Shockwave and Flash, and, you know, Newgrounds, Armor games, and Congregate in our childhoods.
The good old days.
Pre-mobile games, before Fruit Ninja set humanity on a different timeline. Alright, thank you everybody for joining me, Slash, and Ross for Unhinged and Unranked, and we'll see you again next week.